Cryptic teardrop crab is a decorator crab, a species that attach things they find in the sea to themselves. This one is usually covered in living sponge. Tourists love flamingo-tongued sea snails for their pretty colors, thinking it's a shell. But in fact, the shell is quite dull and hidden underneath colorful soft tissues. They'll eat softer toxic parts of coral and store their toxins to protect themselves. Skeleton shrimp could be the stuff of nightmares if it weren't so tiny. As it is, it looks like a stick insect, but almost completely transparent. Boxer crab doesn't do boxing, as its name might imply, but it sure does look like a boxer. It carries a live anemone in either of its claws and catches food with their help. Another creepy crawler on this list is a terrible claw lobster, and its claws are indeed terrible. Despite the tiny size of the animal, its right claw is as long as half the lobster's body. Feel that smell of snow and hot cocoa? Christmas tree worms would bring the spirit of winter holidays even to the depths of the ocean. The hairs growing from the stem of their body look like mini fir trees, hence the name. Orangutan crab looks like its land-dwelling primate namesake in miniature. Thanks to it being a decorator crab species, it gathers plankton and algae and attaches them to its body. Scarlet-striped cleaning shrimp is a natural hitchhiker. It stands on the seafloor and waves its long antenna for fish and sea animals to go down and pick it up. Then it pays for the ride by cleaning the host from bacteria and plankton. If you dive in the ocean at night, you might be lucky enough to see how orange ball corallomorph blooms in the dark. But make sure to be quick, because as soon as you turn on your flashlight to take a good look, it will retract its tubes back into itself. Despite hairy octopus looking like it's forgotten to comb its hair in the morning, it's actually its skin that's sticking in every direction. Predators have a harder time realizing where the octopus itself is this way, I guess. Sea angels might look and sound pretty cute, but they're fierce predators. Their favorite prey are sea butterflies. They lay mucus traps for them and wait in ambush. Banded shrimp, or banded boxing shrimp, was really aptly named. It's got bands of color all over its body and always stands in a boxer-like ready-to-strike pose. Brown line paper bubble is another sea slug, and it definitely looks like one. It's got a special ability though. It can quickly burrow holes in the seafloor, hiding from predators inside of them. Electric file clam looks like it has electric currents running through its body, but that's an illusion. The clam's underbelly is white, and when the rim quickly unfolds, it flashes the color. There's a stereotype that sharks purposefully hunt humans, but most shark attacks happen because these predators mistake swimmers for their usual prey, like seals or sea lions. The other reason why a shark might attack is its curious nature. This predator tends to bite things to figure out if they'll make a suitable meal. New Smyrna Beach has been called the shark capital of the world by the International Shark Attack File. This is one list that you don't want to be on. In 2008, almost 40% of all shark attacks on the planet happened in this region. So if you're a thrill seeker who dares to enter the water, there will be at least one shark at a distance of 10 feet from you. That's what scientists who have been monitoring the beach say. Experts found some sharks in the Gulf of Mexico that are as small as 5.5 inches. They look like mini sperm whales.
Giant clams are the largest mollusks in the world. They can grow around 4 feet in length and weigh more than 440 pounds. So if you're planning on trying to pick one up, you might want to train first by lifting 2 baby elephants at once. Each and every one of these clams has its own unique coloration, which makes them one of the most visually stunning creatures in the ocean. It usually keeps to itself and lives off sugars and protein produced by algae. The name itself says it all. Megalodon means big tooth. Most of its teeth were about 4 to 5 inches long, but the largest tooth ever found was 7.48 inches, and it was discovered in Peru. With a rare size like that, these fossils can be very valuable. A 7-inch high-quality megalodon tooth can be sold for up to $50,000. But if you have a small tooth in your collection, don't expect to get a large amount of cash for it. Small megalodon teeth tend to be valued quite low.
If you've ever dreamed of meeting the largest fish in the world, here you go. let us introduce the whale shark. Although they are called whale sharks, these creatures have nothing in common with whales. But honestly speaking, they don't resemble your usual shark either. The character of these giants is docile and calm, and they don't present any real danger to humans.
These massive fish can be spotted in cool coastal waters all over the world. Great white sharks can be gray, brownish, or almost black, but their underbelly is always white, hence the name. They usually grow about 15 feet in length, although the largest members of this species can get as big as 20 feet long. Megalodon is an ancient marine predator, a giant shark that terrified all the inhabitants of the seas and oceans about 23 to 2.5 million years ago. This monster was the size of a road train and weighed like a tank. The strength of its bite was more than that of a T-Rex, and it had about 300 teeth. Each of them was the size of an adult human palm.
We'll start with the obvious here. This shark species was the largest this planet has ever seen. Different estimates put its size anywhere from 45 up to 60 feet in length. To put that into perspective, 60 feet would make the megalodon about 4 times the size of the average great white shark. The meg weighed up to 100 tons. Again, for comparison, the T-Rex weighed a mere 9 tons. The biggest shark living today is the whale shark, which can grow up to 40 feet long. So there's really no other shark that can compare to the megalodon's massive size. There's currently a very limited amount of megalodon fossils. Shark skeletons are made of cartilage, which doesn't fossilize very well. So that means almost all that remains of the mighty meg are its teeth, which have been found on every continent except for Asia and Antarctica. Given that its fossilized teeth are everywhere, scientists have gathered that the megalodon traveled throughout the world. Using these fossils as a guide, scientists have tried to put a picture together of what this giant predator actually looked like and how it lived. Many of the fossils have been found on Shark Tooth Hill near Bakersfield, California. This is a popular site where people can dig for teeth while wearing protective gloves. Although some shark teeth have been buried for ages, they can still be sharp enough to cut through the skin. Speaking of teeth, those teeth weren't just super massive. In order to feast regularly on large prey, the meg had an impressive set of 276 feet that sat in 5 rows in its mouth. Most fossilized teeth that have been recovered show a significant amount of wear on the tips, and some have had the tips completely broken off from biting on the bones of its prey. All those teeth arranged in 5 rows served as a backup system so that the megalodon would never run out. As soon as it lost a tooth, another one would replace it within 48 hours. That way, this massive predator could feed his insatiable appetite and munch on prey non-stop. Another well-known and equally feared shark, although now it seems like a puny little runt, is the great white, which can be found in the coastal areas of all major oceans. Popular belief has it that the great white shark is a descendant of the meg, but that claim has been disproven. When the first fossilized teeth of the megalodon were discovered, they placed the mighty shark in the same genus as the great white. But fossil discoveries that have been made since show that the megalodon actually comes from a single evolutionary line that can be traced 60 million years back to the Octopus shark.
African tigerfish will eat whatever it finds, and given its own size and that of its monstrous teeth, you can imagine it finds a lot of food. It mostly feeds on other fish, but when nutrition is scarce, it can jump out of the water and catch both insects and small birds right in the middle of the flight. It's not so big as to eat a human, of course, but the name should warn you that it can easily take a bite out of your arm or leg. Meet the living fossil, the lungfish. It's been around for 400 million years and has changed only a little. There are several species of this creature, all living in distinct parts of the world, but they have one thing in common. You probably guessed it: ears. No, lungs. Lungfish can breathe underwater using its gills and crawl onto land and do whatever fish do for days on end there. And of course, it can feed on land animals. In fact, lungfish are omnivores, meaning they eat everything from insects to other fish to roots and plants. Snakefish, as the name implies, looks a lot like a snake, but it has a very distinctive feature. It can walk on its fins. Thanks to this peculiarity, it easily crawls from one waterbed to another, choosing habitat more to its liking. On the way, a snakefish can get hungry, for sure, so it often munches on small birds and rodents. It can grow quite big, though, and hunt even larger animals. How much weirder can it get than to walk through the woods and suddenly see a huge and toothy fish stalking some rabbit? Four-eyed fish eat small land inhabitants such as insects and amphibians. But frankly, that's not the most surprising of its features. Its name is a bit misleading. It has only 2 eyes, but either of them is divided in 2 parts. Since four-eyed fish dwells close to the surface, the upper parts of its eyes are specifically adapted to see in the air, while the lower parts see better underwater. I wonder if it feels the same as me when water gets into my eyes. Ow! Probably not. Now, rainbow trout might or might not be a land feeder. Although their main diet consists of fish eggs and small crustaceans, there was one rainbow trout in Canada that had eaten as many as 20 shrews, small land animals. It was literally gorging on them. Nobody knows how that came to be, but biologists think the shrews might have been on an island that had sunk, and the trout just used the opportunity to, have a feast. An octopus actually has 6 arms and 2 legs. How awesome would you be if you had the same? You could play yourself at your favorite video game. This animal is highly intelligent. Well, when you think about it, who wouldn't be with 9 brains? They have 8 brains in their 8 arm-leg things, and a central one in the shape of a donut in their head. That means that when an octopus swallows, the food has to go through its brain. Their central brain has 180 million neurons, and there are more than 40 million neurons in each of their 8 arms and legs. Neurons are nerve cells that send and receive signals all over your body. Don't feel down, you've got about 100 billion of them in total. Your brain controls your arms and legs, but with an octopus, each arm is actually kind of independent with its own special brain, held together by a bigger central brain, kind of like the conductor of an orchestra. The central brain sends higher-level signals to each arm, saying things like, "Move to the left, there's a crab behind the corner," or "Touch this silly human's foot, let's mess with him a little bit." No matter how smart their arms and legs might be, an octopus still needs to look after them all the time. Not that they're going to get any crazy ideas and run away, but an octopus has no idea where its arm is unless it sees it. Yup, the arm is like a secret agent, sending detailed signals about things like taste or texture, but somehow its GPS got lost or something. This animal doesn't just adjust its color to its background, it can also change the texture of its skin to camouflage even better. Smooth, spiky, bumpy, or anything it needs to adjust to its surroundings, all in the blink of an eye. Anything to add, water chameleon? These swimming geniuses like to use tools, just like dolphins, crows, and chimpanzees. For instance, say some poor coconut shells are endlessly floating around in the sea with nothing to do. Great news for our octopus. It swims along and turns the shells into its own mobile home. They can maneuver rocks, open clamshells, and even some child-proof bottles. The octopus is a quick learner, and there's a chance it even has a better long-term memory and short-term memory than humans. If someone grabs it, an octopus can eject one of its arms to escape, like what a lizard does with its tail. Over time, the octopus can regrow a whole new arm. The giant Pacific octopus is the biggest octopus that we know of. One was 30 feet long and weighed 600 pounds. Hey, I only weigh, part of that. A more regular-sized octopus is usually about 22 pounds. Cute dog size. The smallest one is a tiny 1-inch creature you can barely see. It weighs less than a fun-sized candy. Giant oarfish. The largest bony fish in the world can be half as long as a semi, though some rare specimens have doubled that. Giant manta ray. Their wingspan can be longer than a bus. They also have the biggest brain compared to body size among all fish. Unlike their stingray cousins, mantas don't have venomous tails. Orca. This largest of dolphin species actually has different cultures. 2 orcas from different groups won't even understand each other's language. They're the only animal known to do this. Dunkleosteus. Strangely enough, this prehistoric fish, known as the T-Rex of the seas, had no teeth. Those were replaced with bony plates that allowed it to have the strongest bite among other monsters of its size. Camarasaurus. Yep, it's a giant prehistoric mollusk. 90% of its entire body was a cone shell. This made it motionless, and it fed by waiting for prey in ambush for hours. Kronosaurus. One of the largest of the pliosaurs, which were marine reptiles. Remains of one specimen show that these monsters fed on dinosaurs. Cachalot. The most massive toothed whale has the biggest brain on Earth. Theirs weighs an average of 15 pounds, 5 times that of an adult human. These massive marine mammals feed on giant squid. Basilosaurus. When its fossils were first discovered, it was mistaken for a marine reptile and given a name that means king lizard, but it's really a type of ancient whale that had small hind limbs. Sei whale. The third largest whale species and one of the fastest in the world can reach speeds up to 30 miles per hour. That's rare for creatures of this size. Sharks have rows and rows of teeth and can grow as many as 30,000 teeth in a lifetime. Boy, wouldn't that keep the dental office busy? They'd only need one patient. Depending on the species, they can have up to 15 rows in each jaw. At the front, they have the most powerful teeth, and at the back they get smaller. Since their teeth aren't deeply rooted like humans, sharks often lose them, but grow new ones right away. In other words, their jaws are like conveyor belts of teeth. Believe it or not, sharks and humans have a common ancestor that lived around 440 million years ago. Even though we both evolved in our own way, there are still some signs of that connection. For example, the genome of an elephant shark is very similar to humans. Sharks don't sleep. They're up all night watching Brightside. Many species have to keep water moving over their gills to get oxygen, so they can't fall into a deep sleep like we do. That's why they stay half awake during rest. Typically, sharks don't even close their eyes. At the peak of their evolutionary career, the megalodons were apex predators, meaning they had no rivals among the other ocean hunters. Their favorite prey were whales and other marine mammals, and they could even hunt down smaller sharks. Not only were they huge, reaching over 60 feet in length and 50 tons in weight, but they also had the strongest bite in the world. Nothing that had a fight with a meg could go away unscathed. An important note: most of what we know about the megalodon comes from their teeth, because they were the only bony remains left after their extinction. Sharks are mostly cartilage, so they have little bone in their skeleton. Lots of cartilage makes them agile and flexible, as well as allows them to open their mouths to enormous width. At some point, sharks also develop protruding jaws to have a better grip on their prey, something most obvious in the modern goblin shark. Their teeth, however, had to be tougher than cartilage, so they evolved into a sort of tooth factory. Sharks have rows upon rows of pointy sharp teeth, usually directed inwards like hooks, which get worn out pretty quickly. Then, when no longer needed, they fall off, making way for new ones. A single shark can replace all the teeth in its jaws as many as 50 times in its lifetime. Now, the megalodon is usually described as a sort of gigantic version of a great white shark. This is a common mistake, though, made because they were thought to be related. In fact, the meg looked more like a modern bull shark. It had a short snout, a flat lower jaw, and long and massive pectoral fins that supported its weight. And what's more important, the ancestors of today's great whites existed at the same time as the megalodon. With great size comes great clumsiness, though. Although the meg was huge and powerful, it was also not as nimble as the smaller and quicker great white sharks. Researchers believe that great whites actually rivaled with the megalodon for food, and were often more successful hunters thanks to their agility. They couldn't fight the meg openly, but were fast enough to get the prey the meg had marked for itself and steal it. While the megalodon was still little, it often became prey for great whites, bulls, and tiger sharks. Even then, a great white shark could reach the length of 18 feet, while a megalodon kid was typically twice smaller. Sometimes they could have fought off other predators, but certainly not always. But even if there was no open confrontation between young megalodons and smaller adult sharks, meg kids wouldn't have been able to find food for themselves to grow to adulthood. The reason is the same. The population of other sharks was growing, and they were rivaling with each other and the megs for convenient prey. The more there were great whites and the rest, the less food remained for the young monster sharks. Eventually, they would have simply starved.